Back in the days when the editorial staff at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, their most mainstream newspaper, was less ashamed of working with John Schulman, who was arrested and the story told in the Smithsonian Magazine for basically museum theft. When Mike McGuff and Schulman were putting together what Greg Carl called my persona for the operation, um, Mike McGuff, using a kind of citizen band, talking around the issue because Reagan's instructions that no one ever divulged the story of the boat. The script that they had planted through Warhol in my house and then pretended to find, which Panis Gabriel called justified theft. The man who looks like Schulman these days in his public figures, in public pictures. In those days, Mike McGuff said that Crary had, without naming me exactly, had been found guilty in the court of public opinion. In other words, they were playing up this model of behavioral abrogation into which I fell and was to be confirmed as what Oliver Stone called psychologically consistent with as depicted in the script. What I had done apparently was been opposed to the draft as a child of 9 or 10 years old while they were targeting me for it as an object in their pornography school, which is spelled Skool in their script. Now, Jay Inslee's government in Seattle, in what state of Washington, this morning particularly, has real bad blood about at-home use of online pornography for the relief of erectile dysfunction in an old man who was nearly chemically castrated, tortured, rendered deaf. Now, these tapes are often hard for me to concentrate on because sometimes large amounts of them are lost when I attempt to save them. I never know if my work will survive while it's in process. Another problem I have with these tapes is that nobody watches them. Nobody agrees with me. Nobody has said, we agree with you. I find it difficult to believe, looking at the evidence, that other people haven't seen my point, so it must be something else. Now, the condition that I'm in as a deaf person living alone in Section 8 testifies to the insane cruelty of Panis Gabriel and his high brokers. I'll let you in on a little secret. He's working with Paul McCartney. He was also married to Queen Elizabeth's secretary's daughter. The high broker, Panis Gabriel, kills the casino alchemy. I mean, they stole it, yes, but now they're saying we're going to pin the tail on the donkey, so to speak. Was able to leverage a fiance who I was adored and wanted to stay with. It's clear that arranged marriages are not unheard of in this circle. But in their insane cruelty, they thought, oh, we'll play karma, we'll make Crary a lonely heart, we'll isolate him. And they isolated a deaf man. And this had some consequences for the neighbors last night when my hair dryer ended up on all night, which I would apologize for. But we're all in lockdown. Early in this lockdown, my fire alarm was malfunctioning and nobody wanted to come in because I was sick with something that may or may not have been COVID. They never gave me the results of my antibody test. Eventually I got that stopped too. But of course, the arcane medievalists, the magus of the hour, Inslee and his friends would say, well, that just shows that we need the queer bait to be in a group home, because that's ultimately the outcome that they want from using me as an object lesson in their take on the nature of reality, which they believe that sexual freedom is the enemy of the climate. Okay, so because human beings making love past too much methane or something, I don't really know entirely the shock logic of how they went about and go about doing this, but they have went about and gone about doing this. And most of the people who are my peers are part of an amalgamate that came in to put up peer resistance to what I said, because these peers were inside agents who were pulling off the pornography. So exactly what is the crime I'm delineating? The crime I'm delineating can be seen in the logo of the NEVA Corporation. Notice the C and the Star of David. And they put out a book with the U.S. Secret Service called Mark C. Land, which is like McRyland if you put them above each other, my middle name. My father was the voice on the San Jacinto, so he was the voice that the Japanese could hear most when the nuclear bomb was dropped, so they followed the voice. And they're avenging C, as they call me. It's a symbolic logic, and they're civil war game. So what they contend is that my testimony is negated because not only did they follow the voice, but now they're broadcasting voices. That's classic schizophrenia, they say. The problem with just locking me up is that I've written for real change. Admittedly, all of those people were charity jackers who are after the title for the crime. But I've also been in the honors department of the community colleges, so it's not that easy to say that because a deaf man accidentally leaves his hairdryer on, he therefore is a danger to the peace. I'm not a danger to the peace. I don't own any weapons, but these people are clearly a danger to the peace. They've targeted me as an ex-out in an extermination program. Now, the AIDS attack was my precinct for a long time, although they transferred me to a military upstart school where their magus of the situation would be when Greta Thunberg took the stand and they released the COVID bomb. So AIDS and COVID came from the same war school. So what I'm going to describe for you today is a little bit about the treachery package that went into these peers in Seattle. Now, to just give you the basic rules of what they're doing. You know, they put semen in my cup at the Red Elm and they infected my gums, and they sent me this card about ejecting people surrounding my name with positive and negative signs, and had this woman with needle tracks and a tattoo of the Grim Reaper pointing at her vagina. So what they're doing is they're saying that there's a moral code which AIDS operates, and this Jimmy Crary schneesh who, you know, had these letters shouldn't be allowed to get away, and they were written by Gail Carolyn Bursting. Gail, Christmas Carolyn bombs bursting. Gail Carolyn Bursting. It's a homophone for Christian Armageddonism. And everybody sided with her because she's Jewish. Okay, so you have this situation all packaged up for an extermination that they say follows a moral code, a karma code. And the people who are behind it have caused a complete blackout. Now, how did they cause a complete blackout? By saying it was Lenin's will. That anybody who solved the story for Reagan and Trump and Lenin in their favor would get the title to the piece. So they created a gold rush to lie for them and create what they say is the plastic reality that is greater truth because it confers the title. And they had this magus from UW dialecticalism, dialectical UWism, who comes up and says, well, you know, we represent the minorities, the downtrodden, you know, and they're all very grabby. You know, who's going to help them the most? You know, we don't want them eating bad shit like they do in China. We have to limit, you know, the food fight to the good guys. And they have this set up, you know, and Sharma's coalition in Seattle seduced me with the openness so the black man could call dibs on the higher form of virginity, which of course is the Japanese virgin, Midori Goto. She was the main signifier in the war game. So what they did was they said that Lenin's holy mission and the Beatles' involvement and the title code involved means we have to black it out. Not everybody in the meeting was, oh yes, we have to black that out. We must never tell. And of course, the people who were in Kennedy cover-up said, oh, we sympathize with Kennedy, the way that the people who surround me as peers say they sympathize with me, right? We sympathize, but we want to inject a little bit of cover story for the sake of the family. You know, they didn't tell everything they knew about Jacqueline Onassis, for example. So they went right on killing Kennedy. So one of the things we'll get to in this is the way that Peter Gabriel's justified theft applies in the murder of Sarah C. Kennedy by this faction, this mob. What we look at, in other words, is the criticism is considered uncool. Telling what happened is considered uncool. And who is it who's behind this so-called uncoolness? The Broadway cast of Hair. That really has to get you that the Broadway cast of Hair set up the sexual liberation scene and then covered for the AIDS attack. But Amanda Harcourt is the attorney for Donald Trump, Penis Gabriel, and the Broadway cast of Hair. That is what they did. The whole thing was a setup all along. And they took me. In fact, the psychological warrior from the University of Pittsburgh, Penny, who lived at 1717 So Street, was in fact the person who took me to Hair when I was just a child, at a time when the mayor was resisting taking children to Hair. And she was telling me creepy stories about men telling me to hold their penis in the bathroom and stuff. And she's the one who set up the sexual humiliation war game to justify for Yoko Ono and Warhol the way they tortured me at the University of Pittsburgh. Same coalition, again, did the actual activities that they are saying to pin the tail on the donkey. So you have Evan Nauer from SAMU who comes and says, Crary, this is important, put this in your newspaper. FUCK stands for unlawful carnal knowledge. And their grasshopper woman who went around sleeping with everybody is now on the podium at Carnegie Mellon saying, I want to tell you what Jimmy Crary did when we were little. Okay, she pushed herself on me. They don't say she chased me up a tree trying to get away from her because she wanted me to take off my clothes in front of all of these full-grown men. I mean, she doesn't say that. What she says is I eventually got him to do it by coming over to his house saying, please make it so that I don't have to sleep on the streets tonight. Pity ball. So they got me to pity ball. And then she, was a little less putrid or something, whatever you want to say about this woman. Now they have this big gangly Viking from Harvard who says, she's like a sister to me, don't you ever say anything bad about her. So it's all set up at Carnegie Mellon University. They've got like natural language systems that tapping into the neuroplasm that they made up in Wattenmaker's, containment center when he was from a psychiatrist at Attica State Prison. And they're going to listen to what they did, and the charity jackers in Seattle are going to start putting semen in the coffee of the queer bait because they're going to take this for Yoko Ono. And Yoko Ono is, of course, on a revenge coalition for the Neva Corporation who set this whole thing up, which I'd like to call, from the age of the Reagans, arsenic and old Nazis. So, ego inflation of personality cult superseded the truth about the attack. Joseph Stalin was credited with saying one man's death is a tragedy, but 1 million deaths is a statistic. Donald Trump got away. He recovered from COVID. Oh, thank God. Praise the Lord. What all this geriatricide is going on, So you have them, and they use signifiers like stave and ecology classes, stave off the consequences of overpopulation. And so they put out a record called The Trick of the Tail, because Lenin breathed in and then he breathed out. He was like the Houdini who flew away, and we're all supposed to fly away with him. So that death is our liberation, and they have the fiddlers of Auschwitz coming to greet the merchandise at the gas chambers. And that's literally where all this is coming from. Herbert Agar had a book called The Saving Remnant, which was to praise and give tribute to the Jews who survived in Jewish culture. Well, they just came and said, saving remnant, my ass. You be the saving remnant. How do you like it, So they had this Two Virgins sex tour all set up, and Michael Reagan's favorite scene is to hear that they ejaculated all over me when I was 9 years old. Oh, he won't stop until he gets to that favorite scene of his. He interrogates. Wear your inside out, queer ball. Wear your inside. I think you know what I'm saying, you know. And that's the where they're coming from, you know. They say they don't like it, but they can't wait to obsess and look and see what happened. You know, so they're playing both sides. An agreement was reached between Tony Levin and Mignon Wen back in the days when I was living with Justin Crary, who was a close friend of John Schulman, who used to have like a president sign on his door, and he'd come to his door and go, "I didn't know." Ha 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 ha. It was like a weird Pittsburgh filmmaker's cinema scene. And justified theft means that John Schulman and Peter Gabriel reached an agreement through Tony Levin and Mignon Wen that they would all say Reagan didn't know. And that's what, you know, that's not museum theft anymore because they're endorsing the people who did it. So it's justified theft because they're helping the people who did it kill Cersei Kennedy and so on. So this is Her Satanic Majesty's request. And it's this form of Peter Max Nazism that the queers in Seattle sell. They didn't do anything to try to protect each other. There was no social distancing. That was taboo. They had the fire spitters. Oh, Cornel West wants to lick you now because you're trying to get away from the biological linkage with the black man. It didn't have anything to do with the black man. When I was in 1984 at the Ball Medical Library, all of the cadavers I was seeing were white. What's that got to do with the black man? You know, so they say, well, we're going to make racial progress on this stuff. They flocked everybody into the street to spread COVID in the name of Black Lives Matters. You know, so this is Pink Floyd's St. Ringo's fire at work. Now, what they did was with me was a frame up of what they call a fuck boy. That's what they did. Ha ha ha. The girls were saying this, you know, the women who were involved. Mount Desert Island was, you know, they said was cowhoods therapy. They had this woman named Claire in a turban, and she said, well, I was raped once. So I understand the psychology of someone who wants to get some, you know. And they had, you know, Leslie, you know, panting to be taken but saying no enough that Martin Edelman was on hand with Andrea Swimmer saying, Jimmy is tempted but he's too squeamish. He doesn't have the masculinity quotient. So they're brainwashing the situation, masculinity quotient. Claire saying, see, he has the psychology of a rapist implanted in his brain. Well, what I was saying was this didn't lead me to do anything, and I asked Penis Gabriel for help, but he was one of them, so that was a huge mistake. You know, because they had a neuroplasm that was hitting me in the head for refusing them. And I was going into seizures for refusing them, and I was trying to get help with the neurochemical reaction, but Pitt, who knew this, said, no, he's, you know, deteriorating European with a psychological white in his head, and he's this paranoid schizophrenic, and we're gonna get that white in, you know, get it to come out. And so they send in, you know, the haughty panting to be taken. This time she gives herself to me as a pizza, and Paul McCartney jumps down, holds pee-pee. He says, oh, the queer bait wanted one. He's not going to get Midori just for that. Donald Trump comes in and says, this is school time, everybody at Pink Floyd. Geo Floyd and Miss Barrett are going to come and teach you the nature of the walrus. And they upload Greta Thunberg. So you're supposed to forgive all this, of course, and that, you know, or you will live in shame before the black man, you know. So what we see in this is the peer promotion was a major obstacle. People didn't acknowledge the truth. They didn't try to stop it while it could happen, and it's almost as if they, you know, using the idea of the legal control of the titles of blackout to give legal title to the Kennedy assassinations to lead us in our love slavery. So Matt Crary is a name from the Old South. I don't mean to get into stuff like, oh, Crary's going to tell us he's a true American. Oh, that white, you know, is what they'll say. But it is true that this is an attack on a symbol of the United States. Long before I was born, I was a symbol of the Eisenhower administration, and the people who took on Eisenhower were British and Israelis over the Suez. Okay, so I was targeted also because my grandfather was a distinguished citizen of Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Okay, he was in the newspaper industry. There's a lot of reasons. My name is as old as Plymouth Meeting. And when, in order to show that they are the magus of the hour, when I wrote to the Kennedys and the Kennedys wrote back, and they, they followed my letter and killed two Kennedys with delivery of the letters to make sure everybody knows that the Two Virgin Sex Tour, which was designed by these royalist forces, is not joking. You know, we wanted revenge for Princess Diana and stuff. I had nothing to do with John Lennon's disappearance from the earth of Princess Diana. Nothing to do with it. But it shows you that in their war game, their stratego, they could attribute it to me. And that's what they did. They targeted me as the name of the Old South. I'm not going to get into this stuff. I've always stood with black people, but even though they deny it, even though they lie about it, I always have. Okay, so that's the situation. The situation is that they're prying into my privacy at home because I need to breathe in and breathe out as best as I can. They've denied me the right to have children. It was greatly satisfying for these magus of the hour to put pictures of the abortion of the girl they hired to get married to me all over the school so they could laugh in my face while I was having seizures. That's what the University of Pittsburgh and the University of Washington really stand for. When I went to the office, biting my nails, sent there because my fingers were bleeding. I was so afraid. I pleaded not to be forced to walk myself home through the gang who were going to kill me. And then I disappeared for months, and nobody called home. The University of Pittsburgh wants to pluck children from the public schools and use them for Dr. Proctor's eugenic experiments. He shows me all these swastikas and calls them a sacred African symbol. This is what Pitt and the UW's faculty stand for. They're getting paychecks to kidnap children and use them for Michael Reagan's favorite scenes. That's true. That's what Nordenberg means by the nature of reality. So I suggest you start thinking about what they've done with the COVID bomb, because they may do it again. I told you that before when they released dates. They may do this again, and now they have.